Pacers star point guard Tyrese Haliburton returned from injury after missing 10 of his 11 last games. He had this to say to The Athletic on the NBA's 65-game policy. Quote, I think it's a stupid rule, like plenty of the guys in the league, but this is what the owners want. So as players, we got to do our job playing 65 games if we're able to. So that's what I got to do, take care of my body to be able to play in those games. And I think you're seeing other players in the league kind of face the same thing as long as the owners are happy.
You want to start here? You start. You've been feisty on it. Go ahead.
Tyrese Haliburton is somebody that I voted as an all-star this year, starter in the all-star game. I think he's been sensational, in terms of the points per game, leading the league in assists, patrolling the #1 offense. We get all of that. But respectfully, he's wrong. And I want to make sure that I say this to America out here. You want to look at the NBA and these rules that inhibits or derail somebody from capturing some of these league awards, MVP and all of this other stuff, and how it's going to cost you money, because if Tyrese Haliburton misses a few more games, he's not eligible to make a first-team All-NBA or anything like that. It could ultimately end up costing him about $40 million because his new max deal kicks in next season. Okay, well, blame some of your contemporaries, because it's their fault. It's not the league's fault. What are you supposed to do? You're the National Basketball Association, and you have watched, and I'm going to say it, I'm going to call out, I'm not calling out every NBA player. I'm not talking about anybody who's had legitimate injuries. I'm talking about the fact that we're living in a day and age where you see people sitting out games to prevent injuries. They're not injured. They're preventing themselves from getting injured by sitting out games. They're perfectly fine to go to an arena and play. They show up to the arena, they're dressed, 18, 19,000 people are in the arena, and you elect. I'm not talking about when the team forces you to. I'm not talking about, because those scenarios happen. But you elect to sit out. Oh, you're not feeling 100%. You're not necessarily ready to go, et cetera, et cetera. Let me throw this by you, dog, because I have my researcher do some history here. Michael Jordan played in at least 78 games a season. In 12 of his 15 seasons, 9 times he played all 82 games. John Stockton, 16 times, all 82 games. Karl Malone, 10 times, all 82 games. Michael Jordan, Gary Payton, 9 times, all 82 games. Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, 5 times. Kobe Bryant, 4 times. Now let's go to load management in this load management era, and I understand that Kawhi Leonard has had some injuries. Kawhi Leonard has only played in at least 65 games in 3 of his 12 seasons. In 3 of his 12 seasons. Oh, by the way, doggy, through this season, he will have earned $276.5 million. I'm diming folks out right now. We got Paul George. We know those are legitimate injuries with him, because we've seen those injuries take place. It wasn't like Kawhi Leonard dropping 38 one game against Phoenix, and then the next day he ain't ready to go for some inexplicable reason when he walked off the court looking perfectly fine. Kevin Durant, we know Kevin Durant loves the game of basketball, not throwing any shade at him, but just throwing out these numbers here. Played in at least 65 games in 10 of his first 12 seasons through the 2018-2019 season. Hasn't played in more than 55 games in a season since 2019. He will have earned $396.7 million through this season, okay? I got Kyrie Irving. Can't forget him, okay? Has only played in at least 65 games in 4 of his 12 seasons in the National Basketball Association. We're bragging about Anthony Davis. They're 0-3 with Anthony Davis this year out of the lineup. He's only missed 3 games. Congratulations. Here's the problem. You were averaging 28 missed games over the last 4 years, okay? And Anthony Davis, he's only topped 60 games in a season once in the last 5 years. He will have earned $266.6 million through this season, okay? Bradley Beal, another brother I love. Happy he's in Phoenix with a contender. The brother can ball. We want to see his spectacular talent. He's played in at least 65 games in 4 of his first 7 seasons through 2018-2019, including a pair of 82-game seasons, but hasn't played in more than 60 games in a season since 2019, okay? And this number's at $267.9 million. We hear people like Draymond Green and others talking about new media, new media, new media. Well, guess what? You got to steal remnants from old media in terms of telling the facts. And when it comes to talking about the facts, you have an abundance of players, not most, not all, but too many players who are marquee, who are the billboards, who are the star attractions that literally choose at their discretion to sit out games. We saw the other day, last year, remember I went ballistic because Steve Kerr, the coach of the Golden State Warriors, decides to sit out 4 to 5 starters, including the Splash Brothers. How do you do that to an audience? You couldn't sparse it out. You couldn't give 2 guys a game off here, 2 guys a game off there. No regard for the audience whatsoever. We got nationally televised games popping up, and guys are choosing at their own volition. I'm not playing this game. I'm not going to sit out this game. So you know what? They came up with a strategy that's going to compel you to play in those games to ensure that you earn your damn money. Because the people who built this league for you, that's what they did. Michael Jordan couldn't have sat out games. Michael Jordan couldn't have sat. Patrick Ewing couldn't have sat out games. All of these people that's played in the NBA, the Kareems, the Wilts, everybody that helped build this game, they couldn't have sat out these games, but they did. You know, they didn't do it. Why didn't they do it? Because it wasn't just about them. It was about the league and really propping up the league and making sure you live up to a standard that was set before you. They did it for the future generation of players. And some of these players, not most, not all, but some of them have basically gave the proverbial finger to the league, right, to the media, to the public. And the NBA said, damn that. You getting paid this money, generational money. Generational money. Michael Jordan averaged $4 million in salary a year. He made his big time money from Nike. He averaged $4 million. So when you look at guys, you signing for 200, 250. Jaylen Brown just signed for $305 million. You know that means Tatum's going to get $350 million, okay? Lord knows what Giannis is going to get or anybody else. You're talking about generational money. Future generations, for crying out loud. And all they're asking in return is that you show up to work. You show up to work. Show up to work more, at least 65 games, that they give you a 17-game window where you can miss. I feel sorry for Haliburton because that's legitimately injured. I really, really do. I understand that. And Anthony Davis, major props to him. But you know what they're saying about Anthony Davis, right? They're saying, wow, he really worked hard in the offseason, y'all. He took care of his body. He's really looking good. And that's why his durability is up this year. So does that mean that's what you were not doing all of these years leading into this season? What the hell have you been doing when you've been collecting this money? I don't know the answer to that question. I'm just going by the narrative that has been created. Somebody got to say it. The fact is, you've got folks talking about new media. They got their podcast. They got their game. They've got their businesses on the side and stuff like that. I'm not talking about somebody like Russell Westbrook because that brother want to play all day, every day. I know Kevin Durant is injured because when Kevin Durant ain't, that brother want to play all the time, every time. But I'm just saying you have too many people that set the standard and they've sullied the product. So much so that the NBA said enough of this. Plus, you got a new contract coming down the pike with these networks. You got to put something in place that ensures these players are going to play. And you know the last point that I want to make that proves my point even more? We saw how people were playing during the in-season tournament when it was a mere $500,000 per play on the table. Okay? How they look since. How the Lakers look.
And they've been terrible.
In the NCAA tournament. How they look since then. You know the Lakers are 10 games under 500 on the road?
That's
10 games under 500 on the road. I mean, really?
How could LeBron be 10 under 500 on the road?
10 games under 500 on the road.
Yep.
I'm looking at all of this, and it is clear. Certain games are prioritized. Certain games are not. It is a disservice and a betrayal to the individuals, the pioneers, who set the stage for them. And it ain't just the players. It's the media. Brian Burwell, the late, great Brian Burwell, God rest his soul, Ralph Wiley, Michael Wilbon is still alive today. Ask him. Ask the historians, the late, great Sam Lacey and others, people who have chronicled the world of sports, who have chronicled these issues. People like me who were sitting up there fighting for players to get their money. And too many of them have gotten it and said, kick rocks. We getting paid. We gonna do what we want to do. We running the show. The NBA had to do something, and Haliburton, unfortunately, is a victim of circumstance, but it is circumstances created by the modern day players, not the players from the past, not the media, and not the league.
Let me ask you this. Do you think the NBA should consider lessening the amount of games?
So
that ups the intensity?
No, because they want their money. So if you lessen the games, you lessen the revenue coming in, which means you would have to lessen the pot for the players, which they'll never sign off on. So if you want your money, this is what comes with it. How is it somebody one day is going to have to explain to me, how can you play in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s? Technology wasn't what it is today. The money that they're making today far exceeds the money that they once made. But notice how dudes played, not just to uplift the sport, but to take care of themselves, because the little bit of pot that was available to them, they knew that they had to go to work. It's amazing what you do when there's a level of urgency attached to it. When you got to do this in order to get paid. Suddenly you see cats out there. But when you
I
know
don't think they were doing it for the $500,000. I think it's more the bragging rights, the pride of winning the in-season tournament.
All I can say to you,
you think it's the money?
Respectfully, Molly, all I can say to you is this. Watch the in-season tournament games compared to some of these other games. You see the difference. Everybody sees it.
Yeah, but
everybody
you think those Lakers players are worried about $500,000?
For their bench guys, they are.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I'm not talking about the marquee guys. LeBron might
that's
have
what I
done it for
thought
a
you were
different
saying.
reason.
I'm like, why
no, not
they're
him.
not worried
but
about
I'm just
that.
talking about the lower guy. But I'm just saying, in the end, again, it's not all, it's not most, but far too many have been too outspoken about how this is a new day, this is a new era, or whatever. This is why you have Hall of Fame players in the ears of people like me and others screaming in my face to hold folks accountable, because if it were us, you would have held us accountable. Why are you letting them off the hook? It is absolutely the truth without question, and anybody that wants to debate me on that, I'm talking about one of these players, name the time and place and I'll show up.
100% right. I don't know what else to say. I'll say 4 quickies.
What about protecting their bodies?
Stop protecting their bodies. How many times did Stevie and I be in a New York Knicks locker room in the 90s, and I got Ewing, who's got 2 bad knees with his feet in the ice buckets, basically can't walk, and he's out there 82 games a year.
But maybe they don't want to do that to their
Well, I mean, why not?
and beat them.
That's for being a professional athlete. You're not 100% every day. You show up and work, don't you? He's not 100% every day. He's bouncing around America. He shows up and work. I got to work. I mean, gee whiz. And I blame Popovich. Popovich had a lot to do with this nonsense.
He's the ultimate.
And that is why Stern never gave him the job as the head coach of the Olympics, because he was annoyed at Popovich for making sure the Duncans and the Parkers and the Ginobilis didn't play games on the road. And that's why Pop didn't get that job as the coach of the Olympics until after Stern passed away, and they gave him the job. Larry Brown told me that story, and that's Larry Brown and Popovich, and he's 100% right. And the other thing, how about the old days with Jerry West? I'm just bringing him up. I'm not using him as an example.
Right.
Travel. You know what they did? You're talking about 4 games and 4 nights in 4 different cities, and they're flying coach. West is in the back of the plane. He's not in a charter with he's in the back of a plane and first thing in the morning to get to the next city. That's Jerry West. And Haliburton, here's what I got a problem with him. Don't say the owners. Well, the owners the fans want you to do this.
Right.
It's not the owners, It's the fans. They want to go to a ball game knowing that you are going to play in it because you're one of the fun guys in the league to watch. And I'll tell you right now, and this is on Silva, 65 games is soft. 65 games to him was incredibly soft. That should have been minimum 70 games.
I'm fine with the 65.
Oh, it's soft.